Imagine this. You're 14 years old. In exactly 3 hours, they'll wrap you in a wedding gown that costs more than feeding an entire province for a year. Diamonds from Persian mines will hang around your neck. Gold thread from Chinese silks will shimmer under candlelight. Every ambassador in the known world will watch you walk down that ceremonial corridor. They'll call it the wedding of the century. But right now, alone in your chamber, you're vomiting into a porcelain basin. Not from nerves, not from excitement, from pure primal terror. Because you know something those cheering crowds will never understand. This isn't a wedding. This is your execution. It's just happening in slow motion, stretched across years instead of seconds. And the man signing your death warrant, he's the same man who'll walk you down the aisle with tears of pride in his eyes. Your father, the Sultan. You want to know what real power looks like? It doesn't come from armies or gold. It comes from turning love into a weapon so sharp, so precise, that daughters willingly walk into their own destruction because refusing would break their father's heart. That's the genius of the Ottoman system. That's the nightmare I'm about to show you. And I promise you this. By the end of this story, you'll never think about royal weddings the same way again. But here's what you need to ask yourself right now. How far would you go to protect someone you love? Would you lie for them? Would you spy for them? Would you kill for them? Keep that question in your mind, because these princesses were forced to answer it every single, and their answer determined whether they lived or died. Now let me take you inside the golden cage where they raised her, where the bars were invisible but absolutely unbreakable. From the moment an Ottoman princess takes her first breath, she's not raised as a child. She's cultivated as a strategic asset. Topkapi Palace's imperial harem isn't a home. It's a maximum security facility disguised as paradise. Every marble corridor, every fountain, every silk curtain serves one purpose: to remind you that beauty and imprisonment aren't opposites, they're partners. Your education begins at age 5. But don't mistake it for empowerment. You learn Persian poetry, yes, but not to express yourself. You learn it to recite verses about loyalty and submission during state ceremonies. You study 4 languages, not to communicate with the world, but to eavesdrop on foreign ambassadors for your father's intelligence network. You master calligraphy, not for art, but to forge documents if your future husband ever needs to be framed for treason. Every skill they teach you is a blade pointed at your own throat. The women who raise you, those smiling eunuchs who bring you honey pastries and tell you bedtime stories, they're intelligence officers. Every word you speak, every question you ask, every moment of curiosity gets documented in reports that land on your father's desk before sunset. At age 7, Princess Meherma once asked her tutor a simple question: "Why can't I see the city beyond these walls?" That night, her tutor disappeared. The next morning, a new tutor arrived with a new lesson plan. The incident was never mentioned again. That's how you learn, not through explanation, but through absence, through the people who vanish when you ask the wrong questions. Can you imagine growing up like that, never knowing which smile is real and which is surveillance? Let me tell you about the one story that every princess heard. The story that made wedding nights synonymous with horror. Princess Gehan, sister of Suleiman the Magnificent. Historical records show she was curious, intelligent, alive in ways the system couldn't tolerate. At 16, she made one request. Just one. She asked her father if she could visit Constantinople's bazaars disguised as a commoner. One afternoon, one taste of normal life. That's all she wanted. Her father, Sultan Selim, didn't say no. Sultans don't waste words on refusals. Instead, he sent her a gift. A cage. Solid gold, so exquisitely crafted that merchants would have killed to own it. Small enough to hold a single bird. When she opened it, There was a bird inside, an exotic creature from distant lands, its feathers the color of sunset, but it was dying, suffocating, its wings crushed against those beautiful golden bars. No letter, no explanation, just the cage and the dying bird. Gihan never asked to leave again. She understood the message that her father carved into her soul without speaking a single word. Your cage is bigger, princess, but it's just as permanent. Now, you're probably thinking this is just historical cruelty, right? Ancient barbarism that couldn't happen today. But here's what's truly terrifying. This system ran for over 300 years. 3 centuries without a single rebellion from within the royal family. Not one princess-led coup. Not one daughter who successfully escaped. Why? Because by the time they were old enough to resist, they'd already internalized the cage. They'd learned that the bars weren't made of gold or iron. They were made of love, duty, and fear, twisted together so tightly you couldn't tell where one ended and another began. And that brings us to the day when the cage door finally opens. Your wedding day. But here's the twist that'll make your skin crawl. The wedding ceremony itself is a masterpiece of psychological warfare. You're paraded before ambassadors, draped in jewels worth more than European kingdoms. Musicians play. Poets recite verses about your blessed union. 700 guests feast on delicacies from 3 continents. Everything is designed to broadcast one message to the world. Look at the Sultan's generosity. Look at how he honors his daughter. But while guests admire the spectacle, there's a ritual happening that almost no historian mentions. The ceremony of the broken map. The Grand Vizier approaches you during the reception. In his hands, he carries a map of the entire Ottoman Empire. He unfolds it on a ceremonial table in front of you. Then, with a jeweled dagger, he cuts out the province where you'll be sent. Your new home. A remote territory. Sometimes on dangerous frontiers where rebellions simmer. Sometimes in provinces so distant the mail takes months to arrive. Then he does something that stops your heart completely. He takes the piece of the map showing Constantinople, the capital, the city where you were born, the only home you've ever known, and he burns it right there in front of you. As the paper curls into ash, he leans close and whispers words that every Ottoman bride heard. This is your world now. Everything else has ceased to exist. Think about that for a second. Your wedding isn't the beginning of a new chapter. It's the cremation of your old life performed as entertainment. And you're forced to smile through it because hundreds of people are watching. You're forced to pretend this is an honor while watching your entire past turn to smoke. But it gets worse. So much worse. The caravan that takes you to your new palace isn't a pleasure journey. Ottoman bureaucracy documented everything, and buried in palace archives are supply manifests that reveal something chilling. These bride caravans carried sedatives, restraints, medical supplies for managing hysteria, because some princesses tried to run, some tried to throw themselves from the carriages. Some screamed so much they had to be drugged into silence just to reach their destination without causing scandal. Princess Mihrama, daughter of Suleiman, reportedly tried to escape her wedding caravan 3 times in 1 week. Official records say she suffered from travel sickness, but the supply manifest tells a different story. Leather restraints, poppy extract. By the time she arrived at her new palace, she was docile, broken. Ready for what came next. Ready for Rule 2. The rule that transformed her from victim into accomplice, because exile was just the stage. The real horror began when she crossed the threshold of her new home and became what the system demanded, a spy in her own bedroom. Picture yourself arriving at this remote palace. Your new husband, a powerful governor you've never met, receives you with all ceremony, feasts, music, public displays of affection. He seems kind, maybe even gentle. You want to believe this might actually be okay, that maybe, just maybe, you can find happiness here. Then you open your silkage, and between the silks and jewels, you find it. a secret writing kit, invisible ink made from lemon juice and copper sulfate, a cipher your father's intelligence officers taught you in those final days before departure, and instructions. Explicit instructions written in code on the inside of a jewelry box. Your husband is now your primary surveillance target. His loyalty is your responsibility. Report everything. Does he complain about tax policies? Write it down. Does he receive mysterious visitors? Document their names. Does he sigh too heavily when reading dispatches from Constantinople? Note the date and time. Every word. Every gesture. Every moment of doubt must be reported back to your father through coded messages carried by merchants who are actually intelligence couriers. But here's the perfect psychological torture that kept these women awake at night. You're expected to share his bed, to smile at breakfast, to give him counsel during state dinners, to become the mother of his children, to be his companion, his confidant, his trusted advisor, all while secretly signing his death warrant with every report you send. The level of detail they demanded was surgical. It wasn't enough to say he seems disloyal. You had to provide dates, names of potential conspirators, amounts of money, meeting locations. Your father transformed your marriage into the most intimate and ruthless intelligence operation in the empire. And the communication methods? Pure spy thriller material. They used what palace insiders called silver tiers, a code where the type of jewelry you wore at public events indicated threat levels. Emerald bracelet meant loyalty confirmed. Black pearl necklace meant imminent rebellion. Send reinforcements immediately. Ruby ring on your left hand meant your husband was planning assassination. You became a walking signal flag, your own body turned into a transmission device. But here's the question that haunted every princess every single night. What happens if he discovers what you are? What happens if your husband finds the invisible ink? If he decodes one of your messages? If he realizes the woman sharing his bed is the spy reporting his every word to the executioner? There are no trials, no courts. No appeals, just a quiet death and a fabricated story. Ottoman records show at least 12 cases of governors who accidentally discovered their wives' espionage activities. In every single case, the princess died within 72 hours. Official cause of death?